Hello, my name is Margaret Adele, and welcome to another indie book review. I am so excited because I have a sci-fi romance. So today I am reviewing Jewel of the Alien Bandit by Sky Robert. This is a sci-fi romance between two aliens, no humans here. Really liked that concept. All about a young Estreld, I think, named Luann, who is the future leader of her people and is basically being forced to partake in this mating ceremony that her people have at regular intervals because they have this declining birth population, and she ends up falling for, true mating with an outlaw named Vario, who's there under false pretenses. He was sent there to get the jewel of the planet for some anonymous buyer, and it was fun. But Luann sneaks on, stows away on Vario's ship, and admittedly, that plot point felt a little bit contrived. I'm not exactly sure how she was going to actually get her plan done with that in a way that couldn't have been done in a totally other way. But you know what? It works. It got the plot going, so fine. And things happen. A lot of fallout. Honestly, while this is labeled as a sci-fi romance, it felt a little bit more like a space opera because there is some very, very dense politicking, a lot of intergalactic politics in this one. There's, these two planets that have an uneasy alliance, and one is like Loki threatening the other, but they have to make it work. And then there's like this third person that's getting involved, and they're getting involved because they're afraid of this fourth planet getting involved. Like a lot of interconnected webs, which in theory is really cool. Love that good intergalactic political drama. However, in a less than 300-page romance, it felt a little shoved in because, like, in some cases, you'd have this leader who would be like doing a thing, and they're doing it for mysterious reasons, and you're not sure why, but then it would be revealed in clear detail exactly why they're doing that, because you had to explain it, because we have to introduce this next plot point, because there's a lot of plot points to get through. So there wasn't a lot of page time for like the mysteries of people's motives to really simmer. There wasn't a lot of time to like enjoy the back and forth of the politicking, which is half the fun of that kind of political intrigue is, every leader's in theory working for the good of their people, but sometimes it doesn't look like it. Like, that's the fun part of that. And speaking of things kind of feeling forced in, I can definitely tell that the author put in a lot of thought into the world building. The thing is, you don't actually see a lot of the world. You hear a lot about concepts and ideas. Characters will talk about animals or plants or cultural mores from their world, but the vast majority of the story's run is spent on spaceships. So I didn't really feel like I was moving through a fantastical world. I felt like I was sitting in a metal room being told about a fantastical world. A lot of telling, not showing. And granted, sometimes you just have to tell when it comes to world building, because nothing but exposition will actually get the information across correctly. But in this case, it's like, why did we need to have so many references to animals and plants we never see and have no bearing on the story? Like, if we're not going to see them, if we're not going to get to see the characters interacting with the fun thing, just hearing about it doesn't really give the same oomph, I would have also liked a lot more of the cultural aspects of Estreldes, and I don't know if you're supposed to say it with that kind of Latin, maybe Spanish type accent. That's just how it came across in my mind the entire time. I would have loved to deep dived into their culture and how they worked, because they're matriarchal, and it's very rare in alien romance for the female-based races to be the one with a population problem. Normally in most sci-fi romances, it's the old dude alien race that like is desperate for females or whatever. So I would have liked a little more focus on that. There were also a lot of plot points that were moved through so quickly, again, because we're dealing with a 4-planet wide political intrigue system that had to all be laid out in this, I believe it was about 260-page book. So a lot of things had just be like gone through really quickly. But theoretically, there were some plot points that I really liked, especially the Lord Zorn, and I won't reveal exactly what it was, but the reveal of the Lord Zorn thing, really cool. Probably my favorite moment of the entire book, and I loved the implications of it. There was a lot of morally gray aspects to it. And late in the game in the book, there was a theme of what is actual freedom versus servitude, because this is a universe that involves slavery. And it tried to introduce a theme of it. The problem is that it was so late in the game that I felt a little bit more tacked on than like an intrinsic theme of the story. Because for all that Luan is like, or maybe is it Luan? It's, you know, sci-fi names. For all that our protagonist is moving around the exact desires of her mother, the planet's current leader, she's not exactly railing against her role as the future leader, just how she thinks it should be done. So the concept of, oh, does she really have freedom? Do the people of her planet who are highly encouraged to participate in these mating ceremonies for the sake of their decreasing population, do they really have freedom? Like, that's not brought up very intrinsically until the very end, when characters are again flatly saying it and basically laying out the theme in exposition dialogue. So I would have liked a little bit more of an ongoing theme, like, you know, seeing our female protagonist kind of railing against her position as a whole a little bit more, like being upset that she does not have another option. She can't just be someone else, because she, like, maybe occasionally, like, hints at the idea of, like, oh, she and Vario could just run away together, but it's nothing that she stays on long. Like, it's, you don't get the feeling that it's, like, a deep sense of longing that she would want to leave her position and go elsewhere. She's pretty, like, she wants to be the good leader. She wants to be the leader, more or less. As for the romance itself, like I said, at times it almost felt like it took a backseat to the political machinations and the bigger plot. The steamy scenes were properly steamy. I am a sucker for fated mates. It's one of my favorites. Although I did find it really amusing that this book tried to, like, science away fated mate mechanics, because the Astralids have a really cool body chemistry dynamic where they have these things called flow all across their bodies, basically like gems that are just sticking on their bodies that absorb radiation from their moon, because their moon just has radiation. And, like, being with Vario, like, invigorates Luan in a way that they don't fully understand. And so she's trying to, like, find this scientific explanation for it, which is really funny to me as someone who's read a lot of fated mates, because everyone else is like, it's just a fated mates thing, and move on. It's not quite like midichlorians level weird science explanation, but it amused me that they tried. The steamy scenes did get properly steamy. There is one giant thing of voyeurism near the end, like voyeurism on a wide scale. It was really funny because it kind of came out of nowhere, but I guess Estrel's culture is very, like, sex positive, so it would make sense. In general, there was a lot of waffling. Both of them were ready to sacrifice themselves at the drop of a hat for various causes. So it get a little annoying at parts, because the book wanted to have, like, the whole, oh, he doesn't really like me, or oh, she can't really like me, there's this other person they must like. But, like, you don't get a lot of reasons why, theoretically, like, Vario mentions this scientist named Kenzie that he needs help with to escape from, you know, the chip and the life of servitude. And at one point, Luan, with, like, no other reasoning, just assumes he must love her. Has never seen the scientist, has never heard him mention anything about a relationship with scientists, just assumes he must love her. Like, that kind of waffling where it's like, okay, Might be trying a little too hard to put some drama in here, but I appreciate the attempt. Overall, I could definitely feel the author's excitement over the world and the concepts. However, I think that excitement might have gotten the best of them. There were some writing craft issues that I wouldn't normally bring up. You know, everyone's allowed at least a couple typos, but there was repeated lack of commas where there needed to be commas, and some other, like, I think the Luann's name was misspelled in a couple different ways a couple times over the course of the story. And that could also be that I was reading off of an arc as opposed to the full copy. However, there was also a moment where, like, the word seize, as in like a seizure, was used when I think the author meant the word cease, as in to stop. Like those kind of little writing craft things that happened with enough regularity that it took me out of the flow of reading a little bit. And like I mentioned before, there was a lot of excitement over the world building, but you were told it, not shown it. So it just felt like I was sitting in a metal room getting told about cool stuff as opposed to actually like getting to see the characters interact with the cool stuff. But a lot of decent ideas within this. I definitely see all the love put into the world building. And one of the hardest things you have to do when you're world building is know how much you have to cut out, and that there are giant swaths of the world you built that the reader will just never see. So overall, I gave this book 3 stars. I will not be continuing with this series only because I have so many series I'm trying to keep up with, but I would be interested to see what this author does next. I see a lot of potential, a lot of love for sci-fi and sci-fi concepts, and I am a sci-fi fan. So maybe in the future, if the excitement can be tempered with a little bit more writing craft and the boring mechanical part of the side, I would love to read those. And with nothing else to say, I hope you have a wonderful day and a marvelous tomorrow.